Welcome to Modern Management of the Older Adult, brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence.
Hey everybody, my name is Shelby Blankenship. I am one of your TAs with the MMOA division, and today I have my husband here. This is Corey. He is a CSCS and an adaptive trainer, and he has his CrossFit level 1, and he's a Metro firefighter. Woohoo! But he's one of my co-owners, well, the only co-owner, with Stave Off Hendersonville, and we wanted today to discuss our Southern Legends Throwdown 50 plus competition that we did this past Saturday, and how you could do this at a place near you or at your facility, and how some tips and tricks on how to be successful with that. So I'm going to kind of just interview Corey because he did the programming side of our competition, and ask him a few questions. So first off, how did you decide to program this event?
So there's a lot that went into the programming for this. So we're coming to this 2 weeks after the CrossFit Games, which puts these huge, lofty ideas in your head that you want to follow. And I knew I couldn't do all that because our resources are very limited compared to what they had. So my first major factor was equipment that we have. We kind of inventoried what we have. We looked at what we could get access to, and we are extremely fortunate to be right next door to Onward, Tennessee, and have a great relationship with them. And they just made it clear that it's with manpower and equipment and whatever, they were at our disposal. So that kind of doubled what we had as far as plates, dumbbells, things like that, and gave us a lot more opportunity. But then I looked at the space that we have. We're a little over 1,500 square feet, something like that, and a long, narrow room for most of it. So how can we fit in there? How can we maximize that as far as heats? And then mine went blank.
That's okay. So with our space, we kind of wanted to make sure we had a certain number of lanes. So for us, that was 3. And then we kind of helped decide the number of heats because we wanted to have specific time domains. Can you go through the time domains that we had?
Yeah. So our first one was a quick, we had outside, there was a 3-minute piece. There was a 2-minute rest. They came in, and we had all the different lanes set up with weights and barbells to do max deadlift. Then we swapped everything out. We had a 5-minute AMRAP in there. After that, we had a 2,000 meter row for our veteran participants. And then for our newbies, we had 1,500 meters. And then finally, we ended things with a chipper that had a 10-minute time cap on it. And with all of this, we tried to look at what are the abilities that our participants had. That's kind of what I based everything off. So we're not doing a lot of complex gymnastic moves. We don't even really have the ability to do those in here. We have 2 squat racks with pull-up bars, but that's not the best for kipping pull-ups or anything like that. So we left that out of it. We're not doing super complex Olympic lifts like the snatch or things like that. So we tried to focus on what we've been going over these last months. We've been open. We also do a lot of work on balance here. So we knew we wanted to add in some kind of odd object carry. And that was where one of our big investments for it was sandbags to be able to work through that with people. Yeah.
And I would say, especially, we kind of based our programs specifically for the attendance that we have here in our gym classes, because at least in Tennessee, there's really not a great opportunity for them who are 50 and over to do a competition style thing, unless they are elite athletes, really in that, can do muscle ups and do all these crazy, amazing things on the rig. So we wanted it to be very functional fitness forward, but also have fun. I mean, not many people at that age range get to compete at this type of level and actually enjoy themselves. But second off, really the only thing that's left is doing a 5K or those kinds of things where you're in that age demographic. So when we programmed our divisions, we had a newbies category and a veterans category, and just kind of made sure that like people who were in the veterans category were more of those more elite style, where they were already doing like pull-ups and really heavy deadlifts and heavy push presses and that kind of thing, so that people were set up for success and not feeling like they were just getting demolished by people quote unquote younger than them. Because we had a guy actually in his 70s compete in this and got a 235 deadlift, which was awesome. And he goes to our gym. So
and we set kind of a broad list of standards for each of those categories. So people knew going into it that they were not in a situation where they couldn't complete something. They may be challenged, and we had people that were really challenged in it, but we didn't have anybody that was not able to complete components of each event.
Correct. And we also made sure that everything was done where rest was automatically built in, so that as a team, they had to complete a certain number of reps or a certain rep scheme. There wasn't like individual call outs, so that if somebody was much stronger at something than another person, like they could help kind of facilitate getting through that specific movement. The last thing I think we should talk about is manpower. We had some amazing volunteers and people who participate in CrossFit or have been in part of a CrossFit competition in some capacity. And that was super awesome, because honestly, the hardest part was resetting between all the different events, especially when weight was a component.
And we even overstaffed what we thought we were going to need for it. And we had just the right amount, and honestly probably could have done with more people, but we were able to keep things running smoothly. But the volunteer component of that was huge, and they absolutely made it possible.
And honestly, I think the volunteers have just as much fun as the actual participants, because there is nothing like being in an environment where it's the kids and grandkids cheering on their parents or grandparents. Usually it's always the reverse. So it was super cool to see that. And if there's any note I can make, it is make sure you hire a photographer. We hired an amazing photographer, and there is nothing like encapsulating like an athlete doing their absolute best and seeing it in this age range is just super cool.
And we had some really epic moments too that are kind of reminiscent of some of those big, like emotional CrossFit Games things, like Roman competing with a broken foot, that it was awesome, not just to see, but to know that we're going to have, photo documentation of that.
So now we're going to just kind of go real quick through like the marketing of this. So I know sometimes people get a little like about marketing on social media for this 50 plus crowd. I can tell you that is exactly how we got all our people joining the Facebook groups of, like, for us, it was the Middle Tennessee CrossFitters, and just throwing it out there and being like, hey, this is occurring. And there was tons of CrossFit affiliates who have specific older adult classes, and they were just absolutely gung-ho. And we had one group that signed up 5 teams, because they just don't get this opportunity very often, except for maybe the Open, and it's not exactly the same stimulus. So we did that. The second thing we did was we got some nice, beautiful printed brochures or signs, and I distributed that to as many gyms as I could find. And just like, if anything, just to get the word out, because I wanted people to come cheer this group on. There is nothing worse than having to go do an event and there's like only like 2 people there to cheer you on. But when you have this massive crowd, like, you just like feed off that. I don't care if you're competitive or not, like, you absolutely feed off that.
And that made the whole thing awesome. We kind of intentionally went conservative when we planned this, because it was our first event. We didn't know what kind of turnout we had. So we both competed in events before where they have like vendor villages set up with products and food and things like that. And we really wanted that, but our biggest fear was that we would have these people come out and then have 2 participants and burn relationships with people in the future. So we went conservative, and looking back now, we probably could have had some of that stuff. But I'm glad we still played it safe a little bit.
Yeah, because you want to make sure you're minimizing that overhead cost, because ultimately you don't want to throw something like this on, put this much effort into it, and then you either eat money or like you barely break even. There's nothing worse than that. Like, you definitely do want to make some money off of it, but trying to figure out like how much you're going to charge per team. So we did 2-man teams, and we did it at $100 a piece. that just made it, one, a lot easier to kind of know like what our budget was, and two, like we ended up having to expand the number of teams initially allotted, which was awesome. Usually that is not a problem. And so next year we're probably going to have even more. And then what we did for like gifts or podium winners is like we are wholesalers with specific vendors at our business. And so we use that product to kind of distribute to them. So like Element and Podium are the two ones that we like to use. And we just use that to kind of provide like a extra gift to them for working so hard that they did for those hours. And I forgot to mention during the programming piece, we wanted to make sure that all the heats per event were done within 1 hour. So I'm going to kind of segue into like how we did logistics, because it kind of matches that. We wanted to make sure that every event only took an hour. So it only went from like 9 to 1:15. We didn't want it to be this huge, like 8 to 5 kind of situation. One, they are not going to have the stamina to do that. And two, like when you have those workouts nice and short and you just kind of go back and forth like this, it allows like their warm-up time to be like actually appropriate, rather than they're doing this like warm up, they do the workout and then they cool down and they sit for 2 hours and then they try to repeat it. And then sometimes like the injuries start to happen in. And so we had to make sure to, one, really educate on the importance of fuel, hydration. It is August.
The weather played a big impact too.
Yeah.
We've had a heat index of 110, 115 for the last week or so, and everybody's outside under tent. So we didn't want to put undue stress on them for a really lengthy amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to talk about the sticky notes that you did? Those were awesome for the logistics.
Yeah. So the biggest area that I was worried about was the change out in different lanes between heats and events, because we had people of all different skill levels. We had different weights for the newbies and the veterans, for men and women in both of those categories. So trying to switch all that out quickly, it was kind of blowing my mind a little bit. So we took a whiteboard, we created a grid that showed all the different heats and then the different lanes. And in each square within that grid, I put a sticky note that had exactly what went in that spot, as far as like one 20-pound dumbbell, one 36-pound kettlebell, one 75-pound barbell using a 45-pound bar and these plates. And so we knew, exactly what had to go in there, and it made the changes really smooth, really quick. I think we had allotted like 3 to 5 minutes to change out between every heat, and we never ran over on that.
No, and it was nice because then you could just go in, you grabbed your sticky, and then you would just basically put it up on the wall in your lane. You would get all your stuff out, take the sticky away and throw it away, and it was done. That helped the judges so much because they knew exactly what they needed. It just reduced a lot of anxiety for a lot of things, because they're the worst thing you want, especially when you're running a competition that people are paying for, is one, they feel like they get cheated in whatever capacity that is, whether they didn't have the right weight or their judge wasn't counting correctly. And it's really hard to, please everyone, but just trying to get those like really nitty-gritty details on the front end just saves your heart and mind and soul during the event. So that's the biggest things for us. Any other comments that you would like to say?
I don't think I have anything else. It was a great event. We had a good time, and I would definitely encourage people to try it out for themselves.
Yeah. Honestly, just like there's not enough therapists that do really nice fitness forward clinician style, like PT with this like gung ho. There is an opportunity for some competitions for these guys too. I know pickleball is definitely out there, but this is another avenue that has not really been explored as much as it probably should have.
Yeah, we had fantastic feedback. People were asking before they even left when we were going to do it again, offering their gym so we could have a bigger venue.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely a market that's out there and needs addressing.
Absolutely. So just to kind of finalize everything, we kind of just talked through like some programming styles and strategies that we recommended, marketing, how you can do that with really reducing, not doing a lot of cost there if you want to or not and then logistics. And then I wanted to just kind of hash out what MMOA courses we have coming up. So MMOA Live on September 9th and 10th, we have it in Windsor, Colorado, and in Fort Mill, South Carolina. And then in September 16th and 17th, we have Edmond, Oklahoma. And then
thank you for listening to the MMOA podcast. If you found this helpful, please share with someone that could benefit. And if you're looking for more practical content to help you better serve older adults, head over to www.mmoa.online, where you can learn more about our free resources, our community, continuing education courses, and our certification. Once again, that's www.mmoa.online. Thanks for listening.